Devin dissected, disinformation debunked, and direction declared. I'm Ray Myers. Welcome to Craft vs. Cruft. Now, it has been almost exactly a month since Cognition Labs first announced Devin, which they term the first AI software engineer, as I tend to call this family of things which had already existed, coding agents and autonomous coders, one type of autonomous dev tool. Now, a few days ago, the channel called Internet of Bugs, which is an excellent channel, put out a video dissecting just one claim in this announcement, which is that the agent had completed real jobs on Upwork. And I absolutely love that analysis, and I decided to just go over the entire announcement as a result of that and kind of see what stacks up and what doesn't. Now the smoke has begun to clear. Now, although this is 2024, the year of formal methods on this channel, I do have a few previous episodes on Devin, namely We Can Beat Devin, in which I laid out 3 criteria by which we as software engineers, or perhaps the open source community, could be seen as beating Devin or just healthily competing with Devin. And this is all in good fun, no disrespect to Cognition, and I am going to scrutinize some of these claims here, so apologies in advance. But I think this product direction is important enough to take seriously and not just dismiss wholeheartedly as marketing hype. We need to separate fact from fiction here. Now, the corresponding blog entry to this video goes into more detail here, but basically this is the scoop as I see it. It is not an AI software engineer. It is not a software engineer. I've invited Cognition to define software engineer. They have, of course, not done so, but I believe this to be an important term. Whether or not you consider it comparable to a traditional engineering field, software engineering is at least a profession and must be treated like one. Pants on fire out the gate. The next claim, Devin is the new state-of-the-art on Swebench coding benchmark, which is a benchmark produced last September by the Princeton NLP lab. It is a fantastic idea for a benchmark, in my opinion. As you can see, they say below, it takes real GitHub issues. These are from widely used open source Python projects. Currently, all the examples are in Python. They could be in other languages later. They're claiming almost 14% performance on that benchmark, which doesn't sound like much, but on Swebench, that is very good performance at this point, because once we started evaluating LLMs and simple wrappers around them on real tasks, on real code bases where you had to go and figure out what to change without breaking the rest of it, all of a sudden things become much more difficult. And this is the shift in focus I've really been hoping for with the website Mender.AI I've been writing on, with other videos that I've made. Like, this is a move toward a real practical focus. The fact that, admittedly, they were the first people to make really significant headway, even credibly cracking 10%, that's really significant. We've already seen how much that has focused the community in trying to orient more around that benchmark, and I hope that style of benchmark has more come out. And so this had a really positive effect. I want to credit the contribution. You'll notice it's in yellow, though, because they didn't actually run the benchmark. They ran 25% sample of the benchmark. Their full blog post makes that clear. They don't happen to mention in the introductory tweet. There is now an official subset of Swebench called Swebench Lite. So in the future, I would recommend running Swebench Lite if you want something smaller, cheaper, faster to run than the full Swebench. And if you're going to claim state-of-the-art performance, I recommend getting it verified by a third party so we can actually get it up on the Swebench leaderboard, which it still is not on. So that's why they got a yellow kind of true on that one. But they did release the results of their runs, and generally we consider this performance very plausible, especially because in the month since, 2 different open source agents from 2 different universities, namely SweAgent and AutoCode Rover, have reported putting up similar scores. All right, then we get into the danger zone. So has successfully passed practical engineering interviews. We're going to talk about that in a second. And even completed real jobs on Upwork. Yeah, again, pants on fire. That did not happen in the demos they provided. Then we get into, the actual announcement, as I see it. Devin is an autonomous agent that solves engineering tasks through the use of its own shell, code editor, and web browser. This to me is the important part of the announcement. This is something that made the progress on coding agents that was already underway kind of come into focus for everyone. Yeah, this is what it could be. This is what it could look like. I've tried to walk non-programmers through using the previous generation of coding agents, and even on tasks where the agent was capable of solving it, the actual experience of a non-programmer trying to use one of these tools has been so painful that I didn't even post the footage. It would have been too embarrassing for everyone involved. Now, I believe the Devin demos are operated by programmers at the company, from what I saw, but nonetheless, looking at this, I feel like it would have fared a lot better. So look at the elements here. I mean, you can compare this to Code Interpreter by OpenAI that's, embedded into ChatGPT. You can compare it to GitHub Copilot, except it's kind of that turned inside out. Plus, it does a little bit of planning and backtracking. So this is cool. The capabilities do look useful, but on top of that, just the packaging they've put it in, it feels ready to go. I've talked to a lot of people over the last month who are working on coding agents. They've been now pivoting. If they weren't already going for something like this, which some of them were, this is now considered, okay, basically the starting point is we want to get all those elements in there, and we'll see how they fit together later. So legitimately, the user experience is a big contribution here. I think in the overall community trying to build autonomous dev tools, this at least sets a baseline. Let's try to get something like this working, and then we can look at what else it may look like, which may be quite different. But if we go back to the specific things that I found a little more dubious about what was being claimed here, in one case outright false, I think they all take a certain shape. It's passing interviews. It's a software engineer. It's completing real jobs on Upwork. It is after your job. I mean, that is the sort of narrative that the more deceptive elements of this marketing take. Now, Devin Has Been Beaten was my most popular video of the year so far, where I talk about, on top of Princeton NLP Lab producing Sui Agent, achieving near parity at SuiBench, the National University of Singapore has a team putting out AutoCode Rover, claims improved performance on SuiBench. So that was Devin Has Been Beaten. And of course, the nature of benchmarks is that they can come back and beat everyone the next day, and then we leapfrog each other. I mean, it focuses progress. So this is all just part of the game. But do you know what my second most viewed video of the year was? It was Layoff Dodging 101. Now, the reason that hit so hard, and why I was even prompted to make that video after having a LinkedIn post get way more visibility than I expected, is because this is in the atmosphere. People are afraid. Our friends are afraid of losing their jobs. Some of our friends have lost their jobs. I have a family member who is at a company that laid off half of their staff in the past year. So I think it's really important to consider, when you make slightly overblown claims of some kind, what is the energy in the atmosphere that might interpret that in certain ways. You're being replaced. This thing is going to take your job. I mean, that's not true, and that's not a happy narrative. There are people who are regularly saying that this wave of tech layoffs is related to the AI boom. That's not actually true. If you just look at the U.S. economy, at the top is the federal fund rate when they say interest rates are high, interest rates are low. Here as it is changing. And below you can see reported tech layoffs on layoffs FYI. And they're following it over the same time span almost identically, like in terms of when the changes in activity are occurring. These are macroeconomic trends. In other economies besides the US, you could look at their macroeconomic trends and link it to layoffs just as easily, from what I understand. So with the amount of fear in the atmosphere right now, it's important to just get things straight. When people are afraid, the only thing that's going to give them agency about their situation is just being able to understand what's really going on. This replacement narrative is not helpful. You may say, okay, you can establish now the layoffs are not largely related to some sort of AI productivity boom, but what about in 5 years? People tell me there'll be no programmers in 5 years. Well, we can have that conversation. A video that most directly addresses that is, will AI democratize programming? And I released it a year ago. I pretty much stand on it as a response. Nothing that's happened in the last year has changed my response on that, which is generally that we've been trying to make programming easier the whole time. We should continue to do it. So just touching back on the Upwork claim, I refer you to Internet of Bugs video on this, which I'll link in the description. It's quite good, very detailed, but you can see right away, even if you just go, and you might try this on your own, go to the Upwork Devin demo and look at the job description. When it says the final deliverable is, look at what it says the deliverable is, and then just look at what they asked Devin to do. And they're not the same thing. So kind of open and shut case. But in this full video analysis, he also notices many other interesting things. He points out, if you were an actual contractor, here's how you would approach this. Here's how you would try to clarify the requirements being asked for, and so on and so forth. I think that's very just insightful general advice. And he also notices, because there's this moment that really captured a lot of people's imagination, where Devin's seeing that something has gone wrong and is inserting a debug statement, then running again, viewing the output, and fixing it. I mean, that's great. But what this Internet of Bugs fellow has pointed out is, if you watch very closely, if you follow along very closely, Devin actually created the buggy code and then fixed it. So this was a problem the machine introduced and then resolved. And furthermore, it was not even a problem that needed to be solved in the first place. If the AI had correctly understood the README, there was a way to avoid even doing that task in the first place, let alone introducing a bug while doing it. It's a demo. You know, that this is fine. This is to be expected at this point. But certainly it should give us pause if we think about, like, what are going to really be the contributions to streamlining code before we understand the quality that's going to be introduced. And certainly, again, if you just look at the requirements, the labeling of the video, which is not to do with the person who is in the video doing the demo, but the labeling and the marketing has outright mischaracterized what's actually happened there. It did not complete the job. Now, I'll jump out of this into the blog entry. As you can see, if you want to just go point by point and see my, more detailed explanation of these, then you can. I'll just show you one of them for the job interview part. So they say it successfully passed practical engineering interviews from leading AI companies. So is this true? Is this not? I think that's kind of irrelevant. They didn't show it, and it's probably because it's boring. It's just completely misleading to even talk about. It is not something that it is difficult for modern LLMs, let alone agents wrapping LLMs with, who knows what Googling and things going on in the background. It's not at all difficult for it to do, and it's not a relevant, economically valuable task. It is a way we assess humans because we are aware of the particular strengths and weaknesses of humans. So you can't just transpose a job interview question and give it to a machine and expect that really indicates their ability to do something. Like, we don't give a toaster the same interview questions you'd give someone to hire them as a cook at McDonald's. In fact, we don't interview machines for jobs at all. Imagine the manager of a grocery store giving interview questions to their self-checkout machine rather than evaluating them in any other way that you might evaluate the quality of a product you were buying. So nonsensical on its face, and also it's old news. This is essentially a parlor trick, and you can see it in, over a year ago, the Sparks of AGI paper from Microsoft Research, where they go through all sorts of different job-related exams, and, here is an Amazon on-site. Now, a year later, is GPT-4 working at this job at Amazon? No, it is not. I think the danger of anthropomorphizing LLMs too much is that, not only do we oversell what they can do, we actually undersell what they can do. There are things that they're better than us at. And so if we strictly see them on this progression of being almost human to being human, ignoring the richness of the different pros and cons, then we do just everyone involved a disservice, and we're not going to design as good a systems as we can. Is a relational database better than a human or worse than a human? I mean, it's good at different things. So as we say, the mock interview is irrelevant. The claim of making money on an Upwork task is actually false. And now let's talk about the overarching label that these embellishments are being added to support. That it is the first AI software engineer. This is a software engineer. This is Margaret Hamilton. She led the development of the flight software for the Apollo moon landing. She actually is the one credited with introducing software engineer as a title into the whole industry vernacular. And she did that in order to secure professional respect for her colleagues and to emphasize the discipline that they were discovering that helped them avoid catastrophic failure on this overall systems engineering project for which they were doing the software engineering in collaboration with other engineering teams. So when I use the term software engineer today, and when I call out what I see as its misuse, I am following in her tradition. I am also trying to secure professional respect from my colleagues, and I am also trying to emphasize the discipline that we develop and must continue to develop in order to work on things which may not be landing on the moon, but are in fact holding the world up in many ways. Now, a software engineer is a professional, meaning member of a profession with a standard of care, and they practice from a body of knowledge which we would call software engineering. Honestly, we're still learning about how to do it the best, but a very good recent formulation I would recommend is Dave Farley. Modern Software Engineering is a book he's put out. He has a channel called Continuous Delivery. He also wrote a book called Continuous Delivery with Jez Humble. Great stuff. I think when we look at the rise of autonomous dev tools, it's especially important to incorporate what has been learned so that these things can take their place cohesively in a modern software engineering process, rather than fight it haphazardly, which is what they will do by default if we do not construct them carefully. Now, some of you may have been pulling up to Devin Dissected video, hoping to see some code, some architecture, how this thing was built. And of course, it's just a demo right now. It's in closed beta. I haven't even been able to directly access it, let alone know its architecture. But in addition to the past agents, Devin has stimulated a flurry of new activity in trying to build this kind of thing because we already understood roughly how to do it, and it just hadn't all been put together in a focused way. So as these alternatives are becoming more useful, I'll also be reviewing them, and then we'll have code, we'll have architecture, we'll have lots of things. You can try them on real problems. So why don't you let me know which one you'd like to see first? I'm not really sure which one I'm going to do. And again, despite my skepticism, I am sufficiently excited about generally this move within the AI coding assistant space that I've actually made a spin-off website of Mender.AI. The new website's called Nopilot.dev. So you can head over there if you're interested in following more day-to-day what the current status is on these efforts, and even if you'd like to contribute. So yes, as a programmer, I think I'll still have a job in 5 years. And if not, I'll simply learn a new one because I'm a programmer. I have to learn my job again every 2 years anyway. It's kind of annoying. And if you've got some help, I'll take some help. This stuff is important. Did you know that 50% of the US GDP relies on software? Oh, I'm sorry. That's just the fraction that relies on software running on mainframes still. What fraction relies on software overall? I mean, probably all of it, right? So I'd very much like some help with the copious amount of software that we have. And if you're as interested as I am in bringing some of these really interesting concepts from marketing and from research into, dare we say, reality, let's get on that. There's lots of work still left to do. If you're working on a tool like this, I'd love to hear from you. And as Lao Tzu said in the Tao Te Ching, with patience, the most tangled cord may be undone. Thank you.